Saturn moves into Aries, and that's a shorter transit, not as big as Neptune. So like I said, 2.5 to 3 years in a sign, and Saturn has been in Pisces. But May 24th through September 1st of 2025, Saturn will be in Aries, with Neptune. And then February 13th, 2026 through April 12th, 2028, we'll get Saturn in Aries undiluted. Saturn being the cycles of growth, of time itself, right? Saturn, like kind of the time god, harvest, right? Having to do with time. When do you plant the seeds? How do you grow them? How much work did you put in? Do you have a good harvest? Is the planet of consequences or rewards, of challenge and suffering, of survival, but also authority, wisdom that is hard won, whereas I think of Jupiter's wisdom as being sort of easily given. Hard won wisdom. I like to think we often think of Saturn as a very old man, so I enjoy the idea that we flip that and look at Saturn as kind of the crone, right? The wise crone, planet of aging, is very associated with bones, with the circle of life and death. Again, structure, form, that's Saturn. Aries is again Mars ruled, it's the cardinal fire, so wanting to start off with a bang. I had all these interpretations in the last slide, but the individual, leadership, pioneers, beginnings, youth, adventure, action, risk, competition, which can show up in modern day as entrepreneurship, martial arts, and war. So Saturn is in its fall in Aries and also conjunct Neptune, pretty much the whole year, pretty close to Neptune. And when planets are in their sign of their fall, they're just not as comfortable there. The experiences or like themes associated with the sign and with the planet just don't, they take kind of their less um ideal form. And the planet's not able to act like sort of with Saturn, it would be with the authority and the offering the challenges, the consequences, the rewards that Saturn usually offers, just not able to act as ideally there. Of course, Saturn can also be kind of a baddie and kind of present a lot of challenges to people. So maybe having Saturn be weaker isn't always a hard thing, depending on how your chart looks with Saturn and Aries. But I'm thinking, unwise acts of competition or war, risky choices, often challenges to authority figures. People who are having their Saturn return, Saturn and Aries individuals reap the rewards of their hard work or suffer the consequences of risk taking that didn't go well. Challenges, blocks, fears, those are all very Saturnian thing around being an individual or being oneself or taking risks. We've also been going through this Chiron and Aries transit that is healing the idea of authenticity and being oneself and taking risks for oneself. But Saturn comes along and really like makes it real, and that can result in some fear, right? So not the easiest to navigate always with the planet of kind of authority and structure being in this sign of like youth and beginnings and adventure and risk. Um, so you get kind of odd pairings there. The Saturn Jupiter squares also continue. Saturn in Pisces squaring Jupiter in Gemini, and then Saturn in Jupiter in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries. Saturn was last in Aries from 1996 through 1998 and then 1999. So if you remember what happened, if you're old enough to remember what happened for you between 96 and 99, that may be relevant. Um, Saturn and Aries, Saturn returned for Dolly, the cloned sheep. Maybe we will see more again with the genetics progressing with Neptune and Aries. Maybe we see again cloning as part of our scientific experiments in progress. The Kyoto Protocol, I think that's really interesting. Saturn returns as climate change is so important. Viagra, very Aries, very, very like Mars. Viagra being very associated with like sort of the masculine sexual activity. The Harry Potter franchise, 96 through 99, the movie Titanic, and the Euro. So I don't know what those Saturn returns necessarily predict, but it's usually a cycle of consequence or reward for whatever was established during the first Saturn, during that Saturn and Aries transit before.